Hello again, fellow Minecrafters. This is my BuildCraft tutorial, part 2. This tutorial will be covering engines further, refining, pumping oil, how to find oil, what's the good kind, what kind of oil is the good kind, what kind's the bad kind, and some tips and tricks. To do this tutorial, you'll need to done my first tutorial, which is basic pipes, engines, and this will greatly help you in this tutorial. To get started, we're going to talk about the oil first. There are two different kinds of oils that appear in the game. The first kind is, let me get some torches real quick. First kind is this. These are pools of oil. Now these pools are just that. They're just a pool of oil. There's no well to it at all. You could do a test to see if you found a pool or an actual well by just randomly picking spots, or just go in and walk around inside the pool. Now these do kind of have a purpose. I use these to fill up to prime my combustion engines before actually starting the process. That way I don't lose too much oil. The other kind of oil you'll find is this, the geyser or an oil well. These are usually pretty easy to spot as the oil is gushing up out of the ground like a fountain. And if you're not sure, just walk over the center point of it and look down, and you'll see a hole that goes deep underground. So what will you need to make the oil well, or make your first refinery? First thing you need is a pump. This guy right here. The pump is created by making a mining well first. I'll show you how to do that. To make a mining well, you'll take 6 iron, 1 redstone, 1 iron gear, and 1 iron pickaxe, and I always flip this around. There we go. Now we have a mining well. The mining well on its own is pretty worthless when you consider it. All it does is drill straight down to the ground. And if it finds something, it finds something. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's very hit and miss. But if we take a mining well in a tank, then we'll make a pump. Now, to make a tank, you need 8 pieces of glass drawn just like a treasure chest or a furnace. And there's your tank. Now we have the pump. What's the next part we need? Well, we're going to need, I use combustion engines at the wellhead, and as well as down in the refinery area, which we'll be talking about in a minute. You'll also need a second pump because you're using combustion. You'll need a secondary pump to pump water out. And I'm kind of far away from my well, so I'm going to use a combustion engine there. You'll want a tank as a buffer, so that way you don't run out of water too quickly. You also need waterproof pipes. To make those waterproof pipes, what you'll do is you'll need to take your cactus, throw it into a furnace. And for those who aren't familiar with this is going to make cacti green, which is a dye. Now we take that dye and put it into our crafting table. We'll make pipe waterproof. And it's a 1-to-1 ratio recipe. To simply make our pipes waterproof, we'll take our stone transport pipe and waterproofing the waterproof. And now we make stone waterproof pipe. Again at the rate of 1-to-1. This is a very time-consuming and expensive process. And you can do this with any pipes, any of the standard pipes, with the exception of obsidian, I believe. With the exception of obsidian, with the exception of obsidian, you can make any of these pipes waterproofed. And these will still transport normal goods from what I understand. Now, the next component we're going to need for our refinery system is going to be the refinery itself, right here. To make this, And it is kind of expensive because it requires a diamond gear. You'll need a total of 3 tanks and 2 redstone torches, like so. And there's our refinery. Now, setting it up, your geysers are usually way up high, so what I do is I build a little oiled platform, and then I run stone tubes, a stone tube from the side of the oil well. A tube can be connected to any of these sides of the oil well. It cannot be connected to the bottom for obvious reasons, and it cannot be connected to the top. So, any of the 4 sides is perfect. Now I use a stone tube. I have both tubes. Right here's the cobblestone tube, and I have a stone tube. And this is to make sure the water line doesn't cross with the oil line. So, from the pump, the oil comes, enters the storage tank. And when the tank has enough oil in it, I'll activate the switch to pump the oil out, not only into the refinery, but also the 2 combustion engines. After there's enough fuel in the refinery, then I'll activate this switch, which will pump the fuel from the refinery to the final storage tank. Here I can connect more tubes. I can have this connected water tube like this, and then it's for whatever I need, a quarry, fillers, builders, whatever you need, you can hook it up. Or creating an electrical generation center for your assembly table and lasers. Now, there is a trick to getting this thing started without consuming oil. These engines will consume oil, or will take from the pump. The engine that's connected to the pump will take from the pump before it actually lets the bulk of the oil go. So to prime the engine, simply go around, and you shouldn't have any problem really finding these guys. You can see as I expand my mini-map that there are several little locations around nearby. Take a bucket, fill it up, and then return back to your pump and pump it full, or dump it in. Now, it takes 10 buckets to fill a combustion engine full of oil, and by priming all your engines before starting it, you will not spend very much oil to keep them maintained. So you'll get the maximum oil from your refinery. It is time consuming unless you have the 10 buckets on hand. So just be aware of that, or you could just let it run. Depends on the oil deposit. I've come across some of these that were towering 20-30 blocks up, and they had a ton of oil in them. Now, before we can actually get started pumping oil, we're going to need to supply water to the combustion engine with the first pump. And as we do this, you'll notice a little bar here, and it won't go down very far because it's pulling from about the center of the river. But eventually, as the river is drained, the pipe will actually go down further. And you can see our water is coming out and beginning to fill the tank here. This process does take a few minutes to get started. I usually let it get to just about this first line before I actually start pumping out. And always remember to watch your engines. If they start flashing red, you need to shut them down. In the last tutorial of this series, I'll show you how to create self-regulating engines, so you never have to worry about them again, especially with your refineries. Because as you can see, we're really spaced out here. It's very hard to watch this engine. It's easy to watch the water engine from up here and see it from up here and say, okay, that engine's starting to turn red, I need to get down there and turn it off. But if you're down here and looking up, you cannot even see the engine. There we go. You can't even see the engine for the pump or the refineries. So let that continuing on. Now we're going to supply the water from the tank up to the various engines. Now you notice I put some waterproof iron pipes in. And what this does is it's just going to keep the water from backtracking all the way to the pump. I want the water, before this pipe, the water to come to here. I don't want any of the water that goes to the engines to backtrack very far. Because if it does and the line happens to be nearly empty, that water is going to have to track all the way back, fill this pump engine, and then come down here to fill these two engines. So this just adds more buffer and protection to keep overheating from occurring. And here comes the water. As soon as the water starts filling this combustion engine up, let it get to right about the second line. We'll go ahead and start the pump for the oil. The rest of it, it won't matter because we're going to let it go on to these engines here. And we'll be firing those up once we get enough oil to begin processing. Okay, so we'll go ahead and now start the oil pump engine. And immediately you can see the oil is coming out. And you also see the drill head going further down. This part is a little boring because it's little drops of oil at a time. But once it gets into the ground, as you'll see, this whole line will turn solid black because it's hitting pools of concentrated oil underground. Now remember, watch your engines. We can see this combustion engine is now starting to heat up. And what we're just going to do is once this line is completely full of water and this tank is full, we'll shut that engine down because we're not going to need it for some time. And it just protects your engines and your stuff. So now we can see the wellhead is actually getting down. We are almost precisely where we're at the base of this pool. And this will take a few minutes right here because it's actually draining off all this oil. And you can see now we're actually getting more of a solid line of fuel or of oil pumping into the tank. And you can see it actually is going up much quicker now. Check the combustion engine here and you can see the water levels full. And the oil, you see how it's tickering here because it is pulling oil from the combustion engine to keep this full. So right there you're not having to worry about any fuel. Now if you tried to put fuel or lava into this engine and start it, it will not run because it's two different fuel types and it recognizes that. Now I don't know if that's a bug or if that's just a preventive measure or a feature, if you want to call it that. So we now are starting to fill up this reservoir. I'm going to switch this switch on. And what this is going to do is pull the oil back out. And it's going to split it across these. Now I already primed these engines before the video. And they're going to fill up the refinery here. Now there are two sides to the refinery. This is the first side and then you have the second side. So it's actually going to fill both of these reservoirs up. Now here, the oil, because the oil these are full and they're not on, the oil is basically ricocheting back to the tank and as well as to this refinery. Once this refinery fills up, then this line will completely fill up as well. And that's usually when I stop it once it's full. That way there's extra oil inside and it keeps this engine cool. And just about there. It just takes a few extra seconds. Now, once the line is full here, we also want to watch our water lines here. We can see our water lines are not quite full yet because I can see through the pipe. Once those are full, then we want to shut those off too because we don't need, like I said, you want to regulate your motors and not let them overheat. because any explosion here will make you cry. Let's go ahead and stop that. And now what we're going to do is fire up the refinery. This process takes time. This is not a 10-minute thing. I believe in 30 minutes, or about 15-20 minutes, you can fill this little reservoir up. And the amount of oil you're putting in is not going to be the amount of oil you're going to get here. Oh, skip that for a second. We'll head back down here, shut the engine off, because we are completely full of water. And we'll shut down this line as well. And now this pipe will basically keep these full, and you just want to watch this. When you start seeing the water really sloshing around in here, you just want to go turn back on the storage tower here and start draining it off. And when it starts getting about to the last block, you'll want to turn your engine back on. Now, I skipped this originally, but now we can see the wellhead is is starting to go underground. And you can't really do the sneak thing to this on this, because if you do, this for some reason actually interferes with sneak and you'll fall straight in, which isn't good. So we'll come back and check the refinery and see how that's doing. And we can see we're starting to get some accumulation of fuel. Most fat refineries I've seen on the internet, YouTube videos, there's 6 of these set up and running with combustion engines and so forth. As you know, as you've seen, these are actually a little expensive to make. You're using up 4 diamonds and some redstone. Then you have all these pipes and just going around, and you have to set your cactus farm up and so forth, and just building up the amount of cactus needed to make all these pipes. It's a time-consuming process. And we'll come up here, check our engine. As I said, you want to always watch your engines. You can see the liquid level's good, and it's still feeding off of the pump. And you can see the same thing here. And that's it. Now from these, the fuel for here can go to quarry. Anything powering combustion engines. Quarry, you can put these combustion engines onto a quarry. Putting 2 of these engines on a quarry and putting fuel in there, oh man, it is fabulous. It is just like a stream of ore coming straight out of the pipes, out of the quarry itself. It is definitely worth it. Much better in combustion. Plus, in the final tutorial, the 4th tutorial I'm doing, we'll be talking about gates and lasers and how they apply, and you can actually set up gates on the engine to power itself, to shut itself off when it hits a certain color, and then turn itself back on. This will allow you to basically set this up and forget it, and this machine will continually pump its oil. And the only thing about this is, you see we get all these little batches of oil like this. That's going to happen from time to time as the drill is going further down. It's going down the column, so it's not finding much oil. But it will hit pockets, these pools of oil deep underground, that will turn this line solid black. The other thing you want to do is, if you really want to be careful, when this tank gets to full, which it's about to, you'll want to go up and turn the engine off up at the pump. This is just to prevent any any damage to the engine, because if an engine doesn't have anything to do, it will explode. And you always want to watch these engines. That's why I tie one switch to both engines. So instead of hitting this switch and then have to run around the whole setup to the second switch, I can just do it from one. It will work with wireless redstone, Alice's wireless redstone, and Chicken Bone's wireless redstone as well, if you want to set up a remote control facility for the refinery. You can see this pipeline's also empty, so we'll start that back up, and that's just how you do it. As you build fuel, the fuel is needed for the big thing for me is using it for assembly tables. because you have 5, 6 of these combustion engines, and the oil it does a pretty decent job, but it drains really fast compared to fuel. Fuel lasts a lot longer. So that's the end of this tutorial. The next tutorial I'll be talking about machines, the BuildCraft machines, the quarry, the builder, the filler, and so forth. So stay tuned. This is Simple Majority signing off.